Alrighty, welcome back. Last video, we spent a bunch of time trying to get a linter and TypeScript set up for a React front end. And this time we're going to go back to the Django backend. We're going to set up a linter for the backend as well. And I think we'll organize the backend a little bit because the way we set things up for that initial endpoint is not very practical. So let's get into it. So I've got the project running right now. If I go to my terminal, I have the front end and the backend running. And I've got the React front end here and the Django back in here. The first step is to figure out what linter we want to use for the backend. So I already have one in mind, but actually let's see what other options there are, because I wonder if there are some better ones available now. Flake8 is the one I had in mind, and it's already there. Let's see, pylance versus Flake8. What do people have to say? So you can run both. They're both kind of mid. Let's go Flake8. Setup, Django. So we want to install it first. Generally on blogs and stuff, you don't want to copy and paste commands because they could be like hiding text. It's sort of like a bit, I mean, it's a real concern, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. But install Flake8, freeze it in your requirements. You can do that later. Okay, and now we should just be able to run it, is what they're saying. Awesome. And you should already have your virtual environment running as well. That's where you would want to install Flake8. How do you configure it? We have a virtual environment. I think it should. I don't know why I wouldn't already be ignoring those files. Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that. Okay, I feel like that's not actually how you set up Flake8 for Django. It seems there's a Flake8 for Django package too. We'll see if we want to use that. You can run it every time someone commits. I'm going to set it up so every time I save a file it runs, I think, instead of commit. Install Flake8, add the hook. There's your Flake config file. What's this package? I feel like this package is not necessary. Yeah, we don't need that. Oh, this is bad practices in Django. I gotcha. Okay, let's just do a basic setup for now. Doesn't have to be Django specific, but just like Python. And we'll create a .flake8 file. New file, .flake8. And let's grab some configurations. Let's look for like a Flake8 default config file, or like a good setup is what I'm kind of looking for. There's some, I think by default it already has a pretty decent setup, but we'll add some over time. So maybe if we let's leave it, and if we run into issues that we don't like, we can update that file. Okay, so we do need to put that at the top to make it like a Flake8 section. We might move this into a different file too, because it looks like you can have like one config file across perhaps many different tools. But now let's go to Visual Studio Code and let's get a Flake8 extension on here. So it'll automatically execute whenever you open a file, it seems. Needs to be updated. Okay. There we go. So we're getting some errors. See if we can find some other ones. Yeah. Models is not accessed. What's pylance? Is that what I just... Can I move the little... No, I can't. Okay, let's run Flake8 for a sec. I don't know why it says pylance. I like it says if we find a linter, it says import but not used, import Django.db could not be resolved from source pylance. So I don't know what pylance is, because there's like the linter error and then there's the pylance error. We do want to ignore these files, so let's just add this over here. We don't even have like many of those files, but it's okay. Max line length. Let's do 140. 200 seems kind of excessive. But we can change that if we need to. Okay, let's Google this pylance here. Hover over that. Okay, close the editor. All right, so we're getting our Flake8 error. And now that pylance one is gone, which is what we want to see. Your code installation appears to be corrupt. That doesn't sound right. This is annoying, isn't it? Okay, did that just need to relaunch again? And we're back to having pylance issues. What? Okay, and now we just have... Oh no, there's the pylance again. Oh, and then reactivate your virtual environment. Okay, I don't understand why that would make a difference, but we'll do it. That really should make a difference though, in my opinion. right, so Flake8 ran, and then once again, pylance. I don't know what pylance is. Like, oh, this isn't a, it's even a pylance right there. Did I install a there's a pylance package? Does it say when I installed it on? I'm just gonna disable this. I don't even want it. I might regret that. We can turn it on later if we need to, but now we're just getting Flake8 errors. So in this one, we're not using the models thing. That makes sense. Expect 2 blank lanes above classes. Perfect. Does Flake8 have a fix command? I forget. See what the internet says rather than reading the docs because it's usually faster. What's this guy? Automatically formats Python code. Okay, maybe this is what we want as well. So linter just highlights the errors and tells me that they exist, but this will fix them for me. Is that the case? Autopep8, current directory. Oh, you need to do a specific file. Can you do recursive? Recursive, what was the command I need to use it with in place? So here's the recursive command, -r, you have to use it with in place, just -i. It makes changes to files in place. -i, with the directory. All right, this isn't a Git report. Okay, we need to make, after this, we're going to set up Git, and then we'll make the final changes that I was talking about at the beginning. So that hypothetically ran. I don't know because there's no Git diff, and it didn't give me any output. So let's set up Git. To start, I'm actually going to, so I'm going to put my laptop to the side and I'm just going to create, you're going to want to do this too. I'm just doing it this way because I don't want to accidentally give away personal information, but you're going to want to create GitHub repositories or GitLab or whatever, wherever you want to store your code. So I'm logging into Git. You might want to do the same, angle that like that. So I'm going to my profile, repositories. So we're going to create one repository for both, like for each. So we're going to have 2 repositories for this. So I'm gonna have my React boilerplate. I'm gonna make mine private. I don't need any get ignores or licenses or anything like that because it's all private. So create that one. And then back in my editor, I'm gonna go back to the terminal. And for both of these, we're gonna run git init, which like turns this into a repository. This one have, okay, this one is actually set up. There's no remote set up, okay. And that's the React one. So just add everything. Well, actually, reset that. Make sure you're not adding something you don't want to add. So I'm going to add everything and see what we have here. Like you wouldn't want to add your, I think for the React project, it's probably already set up with a git ignore if we just double check. But you wouldn't want to add like your environment files or environment variables or anything like that. So this one's already set up with a git ignore. It gave us that sweet like don't have our node modules. We don't even have an environment file on the front end yet. So the front end is pretty simple. Let's add that. And we can call this the initial commit, but it has a lot of stuff going on because we initial commit. So we have like pages, router, TypeScript, linter. We set up a few things, but make that commit. And then get remote, add origin, and this will be different for you, your origin. I'm just grabbing mine from GitHub after you create the repository. So it'll be like your username and then the name of the repository you created. So we have a remote there, and then we can push to our origin remote. We can just push to what branch am I on? Oh, it's master, okay. Okay, so now we have our React GitHub repository set up. If you go back to GitHub, you should be able to refresh and see all the code we just uploaded. Now I'm going to create a second repository. I'm going to call this one Django boilerplate. You can call it the name of your project if you want. Create the repository, and now we're going to do the same thing. So down here, we just did git init, so this is now a GitHub repository. And now we can, so in this one, if we go to our git ignore real quick, all right, so my environment file has like nothing in it. Secret key will change, and these are just like dummy values, but you would not want to show this on, if you were streaming yourself, or you wouldn't really want to share it with anyone. But we have nothing else here that's like secret. I'm pretty sure in our settings file, we haven't used any important environment variables later or yet. We will later in this tutorial. So when I do that, I'm going to be setting up my environment file beforehand so that you guys don't see my variables because some of them will be sensitive. And yeah, and then we'll just use them with like the environment functionality. So you can just like pull those variables from that file. But we haven't done anything like that yet. So if you go back here, we can add everything. Make sure we're not adding anything crazy. That's all. We're adding a bunch of .pyc files. I think that's fine. I'll remove them later if we need to. Initial commit. And it has a bunch of stuff as well. It has REST framework, endpoints, model, or like a test model. Initial commit's kind of like, the commit message doesn't matter that much in my opinion because you're adding just so much stuff. But now we're going to want to add our remote. So get remote, add, we're adding a remote, we're naming the remote origin, and then you're going to want to put in the URL. You can probably just copy and paste this too if you're on your computer. I have it on a different screen. So we added that remote. Now we can push to that remote. Is this one named main? Okay. So now we have repositories set up for both of those. Woohoo. So I'm going to rerun. What are we running? Pep8? Flake. What was the command we ran to try and fix things? I can't remember. Let's take a peek. So it shouldn't actually. Where's the command? Autopep. It shouldn't actually change anything because we already ran it. A-recursive-i in place, and it didn't change anything because we already ran it. Even if it, I don't even think it changed anything in the past, but. Okay, so linter setup, repository setup, and now let's reorganize our code. And we might need to, I'll see in the future, but we might need to set up those linters so that they run when we save the file and perhaps when we commit as well, just to make sure that we're only ever committing code that has been cleaned up. But if we, let's just run our apps again. So we ran our front end, run the back end. It's going to force me into a window, close all these. Right, so we have our Hello World app, but we're going to go back to the backend code and clean that up a little bit. So close all our files. Let's go to our example app. I'll close that. So we're going into our Django app or Django project example app. And then, actually I went to the wrong place. We're going to our Django project, our kind of config folder, and we're going to the URLs file. In the URLs file, this is where we did everything to create that endpoint. So we imported our model that we used as an example. We created a serializer which defines how the data is formatted when we get it. And then we defined a view set which determines what functionality runs when we're requesting this resource. And the function that runs is we just get all the schools and pass them to the serializer. This is generally not how you'd set up. Well, this is how you'd set up a serializer and a view set, but this isn't where you do it. So in our example app, we're actually going to create a new folder called serializers. We're going to create one new folder called views as well. You can see we have a views file, and like generally this is where you put this functionality, but we're going to move it into a folder because we're going to have a lot of this functionality and we don't want really large files. So we just create a new file here, and we can do a schools file here, and we'll create an init file in both of these as well. So now if we go back to URLs, we can grab our serializer and we can put it in here. We're going to get a couple of errors here when we save that. A few things are not defined. That's okay. And we take our view set as well, and we want to put that in our views file. And now if we just fix our imports, it's pretty much going to be that stuff. Save that. You're not using routers or view sets. That makes sense. There we are. And now we can go here. We can do the same thing. Copy that. No, apparently I didn't copy it. And we're only using view sets here, so we're going to get an error. Save that. And we need the school serializer as well. So from example, serializers, import school serializer. That might error out. It doesn't. Okay. Well, because this is a folder now, you'd want to. My terminology on this is going to be bad because my fundamentals on this are pretty bad. But using the init file allows you to turn a folder into sort of like a package. So you can just do from the folder import something. But what you should do is from each file, you should import what you want available in this package. So like a school serializer should be importable from the serializers, imported but unused. Oh, this is going to be a linter error. In these files, I think we can We want to ignore that error. There we go. So looks like people run into this all the time. If we go to our Flake8 config file, we can say in init files, ignore rule F401. I believe that's kind of what that's saying. There we are. And we'll want to do the same here. From schools, import school view set. Perfect. So no errors and all of that. Now if we go back to our URLs folder, we can remove this view set and serializer because it's defined somewhere else. But we can do from example app, our view set views package, import the school view set, and now it's just simply available there. Also, we have to get these .pyc files and pycache things to get ignored. Where's my get ignore? Is that right? Any folder path, the pycache folder, maybe? We'll see. We can also delete the views file because now we have a folder for it. We're also going to probably move models into a folder, but we don't need to right now. Or you would in like a bigger project. We probably never will in this project. Well, we might, but we'll see. I'm just going to delete the test file too because we're not using it right now. But all of these, like admin models, can be turned into folders, and then you can kind of better organize your code rather than just having one file for all of your models or all of your views. So that's pretty neat. Let's get ignore pycache. All right, let's just grab this guy. So we want to make sure we don't lose environment from there, which we did. There we are. Now our pycache folders aren't going to get added. Sphinx, Rogue, Mr. Developer, translations, unit tests. Cool. Okay, so now our view sets and our serializers are organized. I think at this point, let's make sure it works. So we have the backend running and the front end running. If you go back to our app and we go to our schools endpoint, which we set up in one of the previous videos, it makes an API request and it does nothing with it because we haven't gotten there yet. But you can see here we're making a get to schools and it's 200 name. That's a good sign. Someone's accelerating down the street. Another thing we probably want to do is move our example app specific endpoints into a URLs file in the app. So we create like a urls.py here. If I just copy all of this for now and put that in there, it would be like we wouldn't need admin and we wouldn't need API auth here, but but we would want to import. Can you merge routers? What is this? REST framework routers. Django, REST framework. Multiple app routers. I'm not sure what the best practice is for like, because you wouldn't want to have names that conflict with each other if you had like a URLs file in two different projects or two different apps. Sorry, I keep using those terms incorrectly. You have a Django project and the Django project has apps. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Router registry, extend with the router registry. So it sort of sounds like what we want. So now we can do from example URLs import, and we want the router. So we won't actually define any endpoints here yet, but we would want this router after it's registered the URLs. And import blah, 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 blah. You can read those docs if you want, just taking up space. And now we should be able to remove this. So we're defining a router in our project, and then we're just importing our router from specific apps, and we're extending the registry. Something like that. Okay, that's app still running. If we go here and we go to our schools, we run that 200 minutes. So that seems to work. Perfect. So now we can keep our URLs, our school's URL in our example app, which is where schools is all what schools is all about. Okay, let's commit that. So if we go back here, stop our app. What have we changed? Let's do a get status first. So we modified some .pyc files. That's annoying. So we configured Flake8, we configured get ignore, and we set up our URLs. I'm not going to drill you on best commit message practices. This is just a tutorial series where I'm mostly focused on the code, but I'm going to lump things all into one commit, and I'm just going to give the best commit message I can. So Flake8 config, get ignore, config, organize example app, split routers. So that's a lot to put in one commit message, but so be it. Okay. So I think at this point, our projects are set up pretty well. And now we want to, I think, take that schools data. So take the schools data from the API request and show it in a table, which is like a big step. So we're going to go back to the React front end, and we're going to create a table, or pick a UI library, create a table, get that data, and then like pump it into the table. And then we'll also need to set up like a component that sort of sets the layout for your entire app, so that the table is, like in the center of the screen and where you'd want it to be. So those are the next steps. I'm going to stop this video here, and we'll dive into that in the next one. So thanks for tuning in.